Today is Easter, the most holy of Christian holidays. The Gospel of Mark is generally considered the oldest of the canonical Gospels, the time-hallowed stories of Jesus and his ministry. This 16th chapter of Mark tells the story of Easter in its most unelaborated version. Let's hear it one more time. When the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Salome, had brought sweet spices that they might come and anoint him. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun, and they said among themselves, "Who shall roll away the stone from the door of the sepulchre?" And when they looked, they saw that the stone was rolled away, and it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted. And he saith unto them, "Be not affrighted, ye seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way and tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him, as he said unto you." And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. That's it. Now, people don't like to let things hang quite like they do in this story. And so somewhere along the line, 10 more verses were added on. They are largely what would be called theological. That is, they line out what this story is supposed to mean. As a bit of an aside, I find it interesting is that these added-in parts, we get things like handling serpents and drinking poison. Me, I'm very taken with the actual unvarnished version. It looks a lot like something happened to the women. Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Mark, but therefore also of Jesus, for those who aren't concerned that he would have siblings, and Salome. Something big happens. The tomb is empty. That could be explained easily enough. But then, who is the man in the white robe? And what does that line, "He is risen," supposed to mean? What does it mean that he will be seen in Galilee? And most of all, there's that hanging ending. What about that trembling and their silence, their amazement and their fear? Talk about an invitation into the world of not knowing. The Zen Buddhist priest Norman Fisher tells of attending an interfaith conference hosted at Gethsemane Abbey, a Roman Catholic monastery in Kentucky, perhaps most famous as the writer, social justice activist, and mystic Thomas Merton's monastery. Norman, a Buddhist who was raised Jewish, was surprised at the number and actually at the graphic quality of the crucifixes he saw everywhere in the monastery. He wrote, "It seemed so sad to me. So I stood up in the conference and just asked everyone, what are you thinking when you see these sad images?" Many Christian monks spoke passionately to this point. Most of them said that they did see suffering in the crucifixes, but they also saw love, and they saw redemption. They saw freedom, and they saw joy. The cross wasn't just sad, it was also much more than that. Then Norman concluded in his reflection, this, I suppose, may be the theme of Easter. For me, add in that empty tomb, that man making a strange assertion, and the women leaving trembling and filled with amazement and fear, and I think Norman is pointing right. The whole pageant of Christianity plays out from this event. Now, as a Buddhist, of the liberal sort, by which I mean not inclined to the supernatural, and finding reason a great light of human life, I also find in the Easter accounts, particularly Mark's, a hint of something deep and true. some great collection of the terribly sad, and something else. It's that amazement at some profound not knowing in the face of the mystery that is our lives. Jan and I moved my mother and her sister, my auntie, in with us some 23 years ago. Mother died 5 years later. Auntie, we were talking to a hospice worker this week, and I said, Auntie's in the back room, and she said, "You're not from here, are you?" Auntie really wanted us to call her Auntie because to our ear, it sounds snooty. Auntie, as many of you know, and may have picked up from the blessing that Jan and I were given, died yesterday. She is very much on my mind today. Her image or something about her arises with almost everything I think or do right now. And she was a believer. She believed in Easter not as a metaphor for something psychological as profound as I find that can be, but as a simple, factual truth. As she lay dying these past weeks, she knew she was in some very real sense going home, going to a risen Jesus who would embrace her with physical arms. And this marks what I'm saying here today. It gives my rationalist, naturalist heart caution. And it points beyond to things I do believe are true, deepest truth. I believe that our human condition is characterized by hurt. Now, I don't find a lot of help in the damaged goods view of that hurt, as we get in the idea of original sin, except insofar as we have eaten of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, and with that dualistic mind have very much cast ourselves into a world filled with pain, desire, loss, and longing. But I also see that our human condition is at the same time always open to something else, to a great healing. In Buddhism, it's called enlightenment, or, and I prefer the word, awakening. And I believe I also see that sense of awakening in the Easter story. In fact, I believe Easter is the Christian story of awakening. And this is important. Awakening is something more than a psychological perspective, although it's that too. It points to a reality somewhere between the firings of the synapses in our brains and the literal bricks of gold, many mansions my auntie so truly believed in. Or maybe a better way to say it, we're looking to a reality that is neither the sum reduction of our mental reality nor a place somewhere else. Let me introduce another story that might illuminate what this could be. It's a famous Zen koan collected in the early 12th century anthology, The Blue Cliff Record. It's the sixth story in the collection, and it's all about awakening. It's really short. Yunmin asked his assembly, "I don't ask you about before the 15th of the month. Tell me something about after the 15th. No one spoke, so he responded himself, "Every day is a good day." This isn't a complete non sequitur. The 15th is the time of the full moon and is a common metaphor in East Asia for the moment of awakening. Also, it probably doesn't hurt to note that Yunmin lived in a harsh, politically unstable time where armies were on the march and famine and hunger and danger, the common currency of the day. So it would be very hard to find the phrase, "every day is a good day," as meaning, "don't worry, be happy." In some schools of the Zen tradition, people who have been acknowledged as teachers, after a ceremony that takes place in private at midnight, the next day they're often expected to give a talk on this koan. Also, just a bit on that word koan. It has entered the popular use within our English language meaning a thorny problem. Or for those a little more familiar with it as a spiritual thing, often as a question that appears to Neither is what koan really means, at least within the context of its use as part of a spiritual discipline. In that primary sense, a koan is a statement about reality and an invitation into presence. A koan is a pointer to the real, the deepest real, and with that, an invitation to come and stand in that place. And this is most important. It is within presence we find our awakening, our waking up from the slumber of life that has been distracted from the many important matters. We slumber with our apparently endless desires. We slumber with our anger and hatred. We slumber as we figure something out as true and defend fiercely that idea of truth, sometimes even to death. Sometimes our own, too often someone else's. Waking up is waking up from all this grasping and wanting and resenting and hating and knowing for sure into something else. And the most important thing, this waking up is our common human experience. It comes to us as Christians. It comes to us as Jews. It comes to us as Muslims and as Hindus and as Buddhists. It comes to us without any religion at all. Did my auntie find that place? I don't know. She seemed a bit too sure of the literal reality. But then, it's always seen through a glass darkly. That's why a psychological definition isn't quite right either. We're speaking of the great universal, the one, the open, the boundless. And we only ever come to this through the particular, or more specifically, as the particular. As a child ready for this to be over, as those of us who heard there may be pie in the offing, in that. So knowing the literal, or knowing the psychological, if we hold them with open hands, then we're moving toward that place. One can find that place, this moment, this perspective, at any time and anywhere. Although sometimes the places are perhaps more conducive to our notice. And so, Easter. The Easter of those women, the Easter of Auntie struggling for her last breath, the Easter for Jan and me and those long hours sitting at her bedside, the Easter of our friends coming and helping prepare her body, washing it and dressing her in her Sunday go-to-meeting dress, and with a shawl closed with one of her favorite dragon brooches. Easter. Easter. Easter as this moment, as this mind, as this heart, filled with all its sadness and all its glory, and with our fully opening ourselves to what is, with that complete disruption of what we thought was the way things are, and with that awakening into something new, mystery piled upon mystery, wonder and joy, and yes, absolutely fear. And back to that story, the Marys and Salome's experience, a terrible and wonderful moment, a complete disruption of what they thought was so, where they, each of them had an awakening, each in their own way as themselves and no one else, finding the one awakening. Every day is a good day. Nothing is missing in that day on this Easter day. We wake up to the whole mess and we find it really is a blessing. With Easter, we're being invited into a new place, a moment, a stance that can change how we live in this world. So it can be about a sweet by-and-by. I have no argument. I don't know. Or it is about a new attitude in the face of life and death. I don't know. What I find within that not knowing is something that allows both ideas, but is trapped by neither. Rather, I find Easter is a response to the invitation to not turn away from any part. The hurt, the agonies, the failures, but to open up and to open up more until even death is just a part of the mystery. Find that And then the stories tell us there is a new birth, like spring, like Easter, like the mind of Easter, like the heart of Easter. Amen.